Manatee Community Foundation CEO. I'm so grateful you took the time to be here today. That tells me, as a funder, that you're invested in your mission organization and that you are here to expand your capacity and to invest in the community and those you serve directly. So welcome to Manatee Connects. We are engaged with Manatee Connects to deliver content to you, our nonprofit partners, to help you elevate and invest in your organizations on an ongoing basis. So stay tuned. If you're not on our newsletter, please sign up. Just let us know on the way out or send us an email, and we will make sure that you're getting all the information. There's actually a newsletter coming out in a couple of days with an announcement and a few written. And today we are so focused on something that means a lot to all of us, particularly at MCF, culture evolution, and investing in that intangible that makes us strong at our community foundation and in your organization. At MCF, we strengthen and enhance our region through golden. I want to say so many things at the same time. We want to boost our region's well-being by improving a quality of life. And our mission, partner with our citizens to strengthen and enhance our community through philanthropy education. So now and forever, we're here for the long haul. And that means to support you for the long haul as well, especially in this really difficult climate we are seeing, where we just learned yesterday, I got the final number, there are 63 organizations, nonprofits in our Manatee County that receive federal funding. There are 137 of them that receive federal funding in Sarasota County. As we all know, with our climate and the reduction in the potential cuts, the investigations and all of that heightened environment, we're a little bit nervous. But I learned some good news too. And one of the pieces was that for those who are under investigation, you will already know it. So if you've not heard, you're probably in the clear. And also, if your funding has continued, you're probably in the clear too, right? So nothing is for certain, but some encouraging news yesterday from FNA and FPN at a very deep webinar talking about these funding cuts. So keep up the great work, and also know that if and when you face adversity, we are here to support you as your partner in funding and capacity building. So thanks again for making that investment today. We are in for a treat. Our friend David Kraft, who's not only a past winner of the Spirit Award just this last year for his heroic efforts during the disasters that we all experienced, but also the chair of two incredible organizations, Career Source Suncoast and Turning Points, both of whom make a huge difference in our. He has a professional career that is too amazing to tell, so I'm going to let him introduce himself, the pieces that matter the most. But today we're talking about culture. We're talking about investing. We are only as strong as the people in our organizations. And we all witnessed that last year with the multiple disasters. We see the best and we see the worst of people during those heightened stress times. So I invite all of us to think about the fact that adversity is promised to all of us in life. It's what we do about it that matters. It's how we handle it. And building a strong culture within your workplaces is what creates that sense of team and that capacity, not only in good times, but also in crises. So draw from today, ask the questions, and stay tuned. You'll get the PowerPoint today, so you don't need to take copious notes. You can be in and focused. And you also get a survey. Please help us by completing the survey so that we know what you want to hear about next in the future Manatee Connect experiences. And also, don't wait for surveys or us to ask to connect with us. Please reach out. Let us know what you need. And stay tuned also for our granting cycles and our scholarship cycles, because we want to invest in you. So with all of that, thank you so much. I want to say thank you to Sarah for putting all of this together and ordering all the right things. We all know Chick-fil-A is very popular. Please get up and get seconds. And we have Jacob Kinsel here, who is our Director of Finance and Operations. Jacob's role is the newest role we added to our team as we evolve to what we call internally Manatee 2.0. And so we evolved from the great relationship we had with our friends in Sarasota to being a completely independent foundation. That became effective July 1. We are ultra focused and being nimble, innovative, flexible, and bringing new services to our community, which we are now able to do. And Jacob has been the magic behind it all. So very grateful to the two of you. And we have Simone, who is online recording our webinar. And we have, of course, our development team in Mac, Fallon, and Yolanda, who I'm sure most of you know by now. So with that, David, we are all ears and excited to have you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you. Heroic might be a stretch, but thank you so much for that. As far as my own introduction, I'm gonna just give you this introduction. I am not a keynote speaker. I do not speak as a rule. I do it when I have an opportunity. I love to do it. But that said, there's two things you should know about me as a speaker. I'm not super polished. Number two, I speak approximately, and I heard this from a guy in DC last spring. I'm like, that's me, I'm taking that. Mark Perna is his name, if you want to look him up. He's a great guy. He said, I talk 120 words a minute with gusts to 150, so hold on. I know in this room, we understand that terminology. Not everyone would, but we do. So 4 things happened to me this morning that were interesting. First one is that I was rear-ended at a traffic light on my way in. There was literally 0 damage. Just telling Sarah, like, we didn't even miss a light cycle. Went through the state. I got out. I was like, the other guy got out. He was like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I was like, my car looks fine. Your grill's broken. He goes, the grill was broken before, so I'm good. So that was the first thing. Then I got here and realized my watch isn't working. So I'm going to try to get you all out of here by 2 o'clock. Jacob has graciously agreed to provide lunch. The third thing is I realized that I focused my attention in terms of my presentation length on the entire time that we're going to be in this room from 8:30 to 10. So this is a 90-minute presentation. So the gusts to 150 may actually be 175, 200, 250, something like that. The thing that happened to me this morning was I had someone who was planted in the audience who wasn't able to be here for an exercise, which means someone here who didn't get the forewarning is probably going to get that exercise if we even have time for it. So with that, I told you I'm not polished. I'm just a guy, and here's my introduction. You know, Veronica said I can, kind of like pick up there. I'm just a guy who's passionate about what I do. And what I do is I help people have a better day at work. And that's really it for me. If I'm seeing that impact, that's the impact I'm looking to see. So thank you for being here. Real quick, just to get a read of the room, if I could get an idea of total organization size. So let's say 0 to 15 team members in your organization, raise your hand. Right? And let's go 15 to 50. Wow, y'all are grouped. Let's go 50 to 100. Anybody over 100? All right. Anybody over 200? Whatever it is. Anybody in the room not going to raise your hand no matter what I ask? There's other questions coming. I didn't look to see if there was anybody who didn't raise their hands at all. So, all right, and I'm going to work back and forth between my PowerPoint and my phone here because again, I'm not a speaker. So I have a question for you. I want you to think about it just for a minute. Even if you think you know the answer, just take a second and absorb the question. How many of you in this room would say that retention is one of your key challenges in terms of your team? Take 15 seconds to consider that question. And then, once again, raise your hands. I'll give you another poll. We have a handful that are on the retention side. How about productivity slash, in this case, we're in a nonprofit setting, so there isn't really profitability, but let's look at efficiency or productivity. So, that's more hands. Okay, again, that's a good read for me to have on the record. So we're going to talk about both. And I just want to say this on the nonprofit front. So the Connected Workplace is a certification path that I developed several years ago. Actually, I developed it as a manager. And then I started a consulting company, and then I further developed it into an actual certification path for other companies. And all of my experience with it in those early days was on a for-profit basis. Then I started to become involved. I've been on the Career Source board now for almost 13 years. So I had pretty good depth of experience there, but I became involved with the board at Turning Points and some other nonprofits as well. And even though obviously at the board level, we try to stay out of the weeds in terms of operational things, it was definitely clear as inflation, took root, we're reviewing budgets. You can see what's going on with trying to hang on to people, trying to pay people what, the going rate is. I could really see the struggle that nonprofits were having with both retention and with having a team that was, fully engaged and really producing at a level that's consistent with the number of people that are there and the real skill sets that were present. So basically getting them to be, going 100%. By the way, one other note, I was going to say that what happens at Manatee Connects stays in Manatee Connects, but then Sarah told me that we're recording audio. So I would recommend that you just not use your name if you want to say something that stays at Manatee Connects. It is not going to stay at Manatee Connects. So as I got more and more involved in board service, I could see like the challenges that you all are facing in terms of retention and performance are only getting worse. And that was before we had a changing of the guards and lots of funding questions, as Veronica was alluding to earlier, funding question marks also entered the frame. So at the moment, what I'm seeing, sounds like what many of you are seeing, is an environment that puts an increasing amount of pressure on your organization to perform because the needs are not going down. But you have your human resource, your human capital, if you will, is, well, let's just put it this way. You need more from everybody for less technically, not less materially. In other words, you're not going to cut their salaries for the most part. But at the end of the day, when there are funding cuts, it means there's fewer people to do usually more work. That's what I'm seeing in the organizations that I'm involved. So they're like, okay, our funding's gone down by this much. We have to reduce this many, FTEs. But our total workload, the compliance, all these things are actually, there's new rules here, there's new things to implement here, there's new requirements over here. Would most of you agree that is somewhat, at least, the landscape of your world? Yeah. Okay. Good. Then we're on the right track. So, since we're talking about stuff that isn't all that much fun, let's move to some data. That'll be fun. Oh, would you look at that? Oh, what does that say? All right. This is labor market data. This is from 2 reports that I recommend all of you download and read. It's PDF white papers done by a labor market data company called Lightcast. They are located in the Midwest, Iowa, I believe. They have produced 2 reports, 3 actually, I think, but the 2 primary ones. One is called the demographic drought, and then the other is called the rising storm. Most of this data here on labor market comes from those reports, and this is only a fraction of the data. So in February 2020, before the COVID crisis, a record 70% of US businesses reported a talent shortage, according to a Manpower survey. That was more than double the 32% of businesses who reported difficulty finding talent just 5 years earlier. Boomers are retiring at higher rates than projected. There are numbers on that. I don't want to bore you with all kinds of numbers. Male workforce participation has been in slow decline since 1980. And America's total fertility rate has been far below 2.1 since 1971, and that's the number needed just to maintain the population, not to grow it. The issues that we're facing in terms of the labor market are, and there's another probably 10 key points about the size basically of the labor pool. I mean, right now we're looking at very low, still historically low unemployment. It's hovering around 4%-ish. That may go up or down in the coming months, but at the end of the day, it's still historically very, very low. Our area was for more than a year in the high twos, which is insane. To say that would be full employment would be an understatement. The only people at 2.75 that are still in the labor pool are very, very, very difficult to employ. Organizations in this room may be working with some of them in order to try to get them employed. I know some of the organizations I work with do. So there's your labor market data. So now let's talk about engagement. According to Gallup's State of the Global Workplace, another report I recommend you absorb, that's 79% of employees are disengaged. I laugh because that's with Gallup having spent the last 25 years addressing engagement by what is Gallup's leading product to try to address employee engagement. You'll know when I say it. It's the Strengths Finder assessment. So what if we flip that, 2 in 10 global workers are engaged? That's abysmal. Gallup's data shows the world's workplace is not headed in the right direction. However, the data also show that basically, if we do it well, we could pick up that level of engagement and it would result in significant amounts of shift in GDP. Now, this stat is obviously in a for-profit world, but the facts are the same because employers operate the same way, whether we're employing for the greater good or we're employing for profitability. This is also, and I mean, this is a graph, but it's also showing actively disengaged. This was around 2000 when they started doing Strengths Finder, which they alleged it would solve all of our workplace problems. And this is where we are. I don't see a real big gap there, do you? Looks about the same. And this is the thing. No, I don't want you to see Gen Z yet. We're going to that next. Getting ahead of myself. That's at 250, and then you get a gust there, you never know what's going to happen. The thing about this is engagement. Strengths are great, by the way. I think managing and hiring by Strengths Finder results for assessments is a fantastic idea. I think pairing it with a nice DISC profile is even better. But the bottom line is, if you use those tools, they are great tools. But they are not going to. What they'll create is a bump. You'll get a bell curve. It's like most team building type exercises. You'll win for a time period. It will excite people. They like to talk about themselves. We all like to talk about ourselves. So it's a good thing. And I think it's valuable. It's super valuable on the hiring side because you can start to profile people even just by learning how strengths and especially DISC behavioral profiles work. Those two are not the subject of my talk today, but what I'm trying to kind of highlight or bring to sharp relief is engagement has not succeeded in fixing, the Strengths Finder has not succeeded in fixing the engagement problem the way that Gallup thought it would. One last little bit of data here, and I find this one almost the most interesting of any of this data. Recent poll, pretty good sized poll of Gen Z people in white collar jobs said that 80% of the respondents were essentially complaining that people were focusing on the tech for them to connect more than actually connecting. Which means apps and things, they're not loving that. You would think, I would have thought. I have kids that are Gen Z. I'm paying attention to the generational pieces for sure. I would totally have thought the opposite of this finding. Now, I would be curious from a data standpoint, because I am a data guy, I would be curious what would happen if you pulled people in blue collar. How would that change? Would that flip? I think personally, I think it's because there's a hunger on Gen Z's part not to be connected to their device, as crazy as that might sound. They actually want connection, human connection. So here's our takeaways. Labor market isn't going to be flush with perfect fit job seekers anytime soon. As a matter of fact, projections are quite the opposite. Again, I encourage you, and at the end, I am a professional speaker enough that there is contact information for me on the last slide. So you can take a picture of that. And I did get some rack cards printed, and when I did them myself in Canva, and I was very proud of myself. It was very good on the screen. And when I got them, one was missing a heading, and the font size was minuscule. I don't know how that happened. And I took them to one event, and I was like, if you can read these, good luck. And I was like, I'm not taking those anymore. So they'll have to just take a picture of the last. So I demographic drought, rising storm, and the global state of the global workplace for 2025 from Gallup. Those are the three reports I am highly recommending you at least scan, but digest. But the key point here is, in a world where digital connectivity is at an all-time high, true connection is dropping, and the craving for it is exponentially rising. So that brings us back to us. The data's over. Be happy, but I don't think I have any more numbers in here. Which is rare. It's really rare for me not to have more numbers, but I'll probably still bring some up, but they're not up here. We can't.
Can we ask questions, or would you like to wait?
Absolutely, and you know what? Let's. I'm like, it's 3:30. Let's take questions until 3:35, and then 37 minutes. Okay, here's what we'll do. For now, let's do. We'll do a little round of questions at the end of each of these, kind of like I'll modularize this. So questions on data.
So to go back to the last slide, so this is talking about connectivity in person. We are an organization that's remote, and I have been pushing, right, that I really think we need to get together. The cost for that is astronomical. So my question is, like, we want that, but even putting a line item in a grant, for example, is challenging, because they're like, well, we don't really want to afford the cost for you all to just, like, hang out. I'm not really actually sure where I'm going with my question, but simply that, what is it that I can do for the leadership on my side to say, because I know this and have been feeling this, and I have a feeling other people without verbalizing it are feeling the same. So what can we do, right? If we don't have money set aside in this year's budget to get together, but I know we need it, what are some other recommendations, or what are some ways that when we're approaching a foundation or a grant to say, this is an important line item and here's why?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think any type of retention slash performance data that you can bring, all this data would be relevant data for anything that you were going to try to include in a grant, number one. Number two, anything that you can do that smacks of an attempt at either one-on-one or group togetherness, even if it is screen time. You can shift the, like if you have a few people that are in one location and a few people that are in another location, you can get anybody actually in a room. You can actually have them use an iPad or something and get the group on the screen rather than each individual face, tiled. Of course, group size, makes a difference. And your point is a really good one, because it is very difficult. I've done a little bit of work with a global renewable energy company, and there are 75 people, but they're scattered across 4 continents. And we did the math to bring everybody to Texas for a little shindig, and it was like 75 grand. And, as you can imagine, I mean, they're for profit, but, talking ownership into a $75,000 investment just to kumbaya by their view But I was like, you realize that the fact that you're saying that it's just a kumbaya is that you are part of the problem. That's actually, you're not being part of the solution right now, you're being part of the problem. So it isn't that, it is, it is to improve the health of the organization to the end of improved engagement and performance. So it isn't for engagement and performance, at least. Where did Jacob go? Jacob left us. Which means we can order from wherever we want for lunch. So, it's very, very important. This just hit me as we're talking about this. It's very, very, very important that anything that you do that's around this type of work does not smack of it needing to be performance oriented. It just is connection for the sake of connection. But for those who may be in positions of oversight, such as people reading grants and or boards, it's okay to remind them that the purpose is connection and health for the team, but the result is improved performance and retention. That's the they say money is a byproduct, and the for money is a byproduct, not the goal. Well, in this case, the productivity and the efficiency and the retention are the byproducts. They're not the goal or the reason we do it, but those are the results. There's data at the end of this. Do you see how big a smile I got on my face when I remember the numbers? There is data at the end of this from Career Source Suncoast, where we have done the connective workplace work. And that is the type of data that the overseers are usually looking for. Something like that could help you in the grant process where you are asking for some funding for these types of initiatives. But anything that you can do that communicates, we're going to talk a little bit about what I call clear intention. Anything you can do that communicates to your team that there's clear intention on your part to address the health of the organization via connection will go over very well. So even if you aren't able to fund a full get together, if you can get a few people in pockets that can get in a room, you can get a little more group energy even on a screen that way. Also settings help. You can put them in a room, go to a restaurant, like put a freaking iPad across the table in a table at a restaurant with a handful of the team members that are alone. And then have the other team members go to a restaurant and do the same thing. It's pretty close to as effective as getting everyone in the same room. It's a little dicier when it comes to actually hearing, but there you just have to have some fun with it and tell the loud ones that they have to that you're going to give floor time to the quiet ones at a rate of 3 to 1. So if they're super loud for 1 minute, they'll have to listen to somebody that's that'll quiet them down just a little. Not for long, but a little. Any other questions on the data? This data? Yes. No. If she was bidding on something, she would have just bought it down. I have done charity auctions and people bought things and it was like, if you move again, you won't. So where do we go from here? As leaders and managers, HR professionals, where do we go? How do we build a culture that really wins? So here I'm going to give you all a story and thankfully I was telling Sarah this before I started. This story can be 1 minute or it can be 20. In this particular situation, it needs to be closer to 1. So, but I don't have an egg timer minute because that's probably not going to happen. So all of the connective workplace stuff stemmed from an experience that I had when I was a teenager. So I grew up here. I was born in Sarasota Memorial. And my family owned businesses all of my growing up years, businesses. I worked as a teenager in one of those businesses, manufacturing company. We built, it was a lumberyard and a wood fence company. So I was building fence in a pole barn just over here on Cortez Road. And it was hot and I thought I was going to be working in the office. I was very confused. I don't understand why I'm out. Why am I out here building fence? Made all the sense in the world to my dad, but not to me. So it was my dad, my grandfather, and my uncle were partners in these businesses, and I'm out there building fence, and I'm hearing the things that are being said by some of the other, the other team members, people that were part of the labor component, like I was. And they weren't saying very nice things, and the things they were saying were about management, ownership. I was like, y'all know who I am. Like, if it's a control leak, I don't understand. Where are you going with this? So, and I would go up front, like on a break or at lunchtime, and I would hear the struggles in the office, and they're complaining about the team, saying things about they don't care about this, or they only care about this. And I'm thinking, this is, well, number one, there's actually some good ideas floating on both sides of this equation. But why is no one talking to anyone else? Like, somewhere up there it says the valuable insights were being lost, and it was costing us big. And it was. So things that were being said in outside by the team were important and could have been very valuable to the ownership. And things that were being said in the office could also have been very valuable to the team. I kind of noted the dynamic. I'm like, I don't understand why they don't just talk to each other. Why don't they just say what they're thinking, what they're feeling, whatever? I mean, I'm an extrovert Gemini, so bottom line is I always ask the question, why don't they just tell somebody? But at the end of the day, I still couldn't understand why they wouldn't just talk to each other. Why, like only talk within their like pockets. So as I, moved on from that position, worked for other companies, I was real sensitive to this dynamic. Like, how much of this exists other places? How much are people talking about the management or leadership? I'll just put it to you this way. If it wasn't pretty much everywhere, then The Office wouldn't be as funny as it is. The dysfunctionality of The Office is the reason The Office is so popular. So all I can say about this is the gap is everywhere, and it terrified me as I was beginning my career, because I didn't want to be the guy that people were talking about. I wanted them to talk to me, not about me. The idea of people getting together at the picnic table or in the break room talking, I'm a little bit of a cusser, so y'all, man, I'm good so far. I keep looking at my watch. The hands literally are spinning. I've gotten however far I've gotten without, so I'll keep going, but I just don't want people talking crap about me at the picnic table. If they have something, and this is the phrase I use all the time with teams that I was managing, if you have something that's important enough to talk about it to somebody, it's important enough to talk about it to somebody who can do something. So whether that's me or it's your supervisor or it's somebody else, at least go to someone who can do something. Otherwise, you're just wasting your breath. And you're a virus in your own organization, and it doesn't do anybody any good, not even you. You're focusing on a problem that's expanding in your mind, because that's the way problems that we focus on do. And this would be a really good spot for me to not keep going, because I could go all afternoon on that particular subject.
That's a good question.
Another time. Yes, go right ahead.
If there's leadership who are conflict avoidant, so that's something that, we all have leaders that don't want that. What can we do to like manage up to help that, so that if someone does want to bring something to the table, it can actually create some hopefully positive change? What do you recommend for that?
I am actually going to come to that, sort of. So if I don't nail it right on, remind me, and I'll get specific. But hang in there. I think you're going to see it in just a minute. So in my particular case, I was like, when I first got my first management or leadership position, I was like, I have to create something that will drive people towards talking to me. I don't care if they talk to their other managers. I just need them to. I don't want my team talking about me. So I started putting together tools, and this was years ago, more than I care to admit. But I started out as a manager, and then more as an executive. I had the opportunity in 3 different occasions to take the number 2 or number 1 spot in organizations that I knew nothing about. So brand new to the team, brand new to the industry. And in all 3 cases, I had to take the reins basically and convince everyone that I didn't need to know about the industry. I just needed to know about how to run a company. They needed to know about the industry. That was their part of the equation. But as I did that, I used these exact tools the connective workplace process to understand them better, to connect with them, and to make my job as a new person in the team easier. So the entire concept starts with one simple direct: pursue every voice. Funny, I'll have conversations with leaders and I'll be like, okay, you know, we can have 8 team size. Say, all right, we've got 80 people on, and I'll say, okay, so this is, you know, I'll start to plot a timeline for 80 people, and they're like, well, you know, I probably would only do like, you know, 60, probably only have about 65. I'm like, what part of pursue every voice did you know? So here it says we're guided by one single philosophy, that safe and open communication is required for a winning culture. And it is. And this is why. When we feel pursued, we feel seen. When we're engaged, we feel heard. When we feel seen and heard, we feel valued. And you know what? When your team feels valued, that's when you know you've got a winning culture. If they would report without knowing that you're looking, that they feel valued, then you've got a winning culture. So, well, I'm on it. So let's talk process. This is where we're about to talk a little bit about what you were just talking about. So building a culture of safe and open communication, what does this mean? It's just the basics here. Open communication denotes an ability to discuss any subject. Safe denotes a form in which the things communicated in the workplace, in this case, will not form the basis of a future retaliation or loss. In other words, we can talk about anything and without fear of injury or loss. This might sound like a nirvana that you can never have, but I can tell you organizationally you can. Absolutely you can. Communication safety is the foundation of pursuing the voice, and that brings us to the connective process. We're how to play that. See if I can figure this out. This is your team's perception of survey work. So we're going to talk more about surveys here in just a minute, but before we do, we're going to do a very, very quick run through of the connective process as we work. So the connective process is the path to certification. We're not going to go deep on that because I want to deliver some actual key points from certification for you, so you have those takeaways. You can get with me later about more information about what I do, what we do what my company does as a team. But this is the process. First, we measure communication safe. Y'all are going to get this PowerPoint. I'm not going to read all that. If you read it fast, you can probably grab it, but I'm going to move quickly through this. First, we measure your communication safety. We do this in a double-blind calculation so that even we don't know who's answering what. That way, I can stand in front of your team at the outset of this work and say, no one is going to know what you said about that particular thing. Then we pursue every voice. This is through a process we're going to unpack a little bit here in a minute, but it is a 3-question survey of open-ended questions, which is where the magic is. And it's combined then with a one-on-one discussion, first with our team in a confidential setting, but then the goal being to pass the baton to your team so that the trust goes from us to your own leadership. Number 3, we take the information that's gathered, build a percentage-based composite from that so that nobody's outed about what they said, and deliver that to the organization. The leadership decides whether it goes to leadership or whether it goes to the whole organization. I've had different organizations do it differently that way. But ultimately, we have a plan that comes from the team based on the survey work that we did. And then with that, we shape our culture. That's the connective blueprint. You actually execute on it. And just to give you an idea, I've had, and I kid you not, I've had teams who had a complaint that was big enough to ping this report that was that they wanted Snickers in the snack machine. So there can be some really low-hanging fruit. So, and then finally, you don't stop. You keep doing that. In order to remain certified, one of your key components is to stay doing it, to do this process twice a year. formally, if you will. Now, let's talk about the pieces. Clear intention, we talked about that just a little bit before, so I don't need to hover on that too long. Clear intention basically means, we talked about earlier, Emily, which is you stating and then doing something, anything that drives towards connection in the workplace. You're probably already doing that stuff or you wouldn't be in this room. Because the fun part about what I do is that the organizations that need it the worst will never show up for a thing like this because they think they don't need it. The organizations that are already doing it well are the organizations that show up, and they're the ones who get tremendous results from doing things like we're talking about here this morning. So tactically, this could just be telling your team in a staff meeting or in a departmental meeting, hey, connection's important to me personally. It's important to us as a team. And I just want you to know I'm working on ways to figure that out. Maybe in your case, Emily, you could actually ask the question, let the group work. How can we do this? You might be surprised at some of the answers that you get. I mean, that's one of when we're doing the connected workplace process, you create that blueprint. A lot of times the problems that come up on that blueprint are more complex than anybody's going to be able to solve in one day. But the team will then get involved in trying to solve them. So clear intention is extremely important. Communicate that. 2 is open-ended questions. And this is where we're going to talk a little bit about the open-ended questions, the 3-question survey that the connected workplace uses. They are. Can you read that? What says this? What do you love about your job here? You're never going to see this one coming. This one says, what do you hate about your job? This one says, what would you do differently if you were 100% in charge? Now, these 3 questions seem really, really simple. And that is the magic of them. Because you're not defining organizationally what data you're trying to figure out from this survey. What you're about to find out is what your organization thinks about whatever they're thinking about. Every organization is made up of individuals. Every individual is a fingerprint. The bottom line is every single team is different. I get such a kick out of online groups like HR groups on Facebook and whatnot because people are in there and they're like, oh, I need some ideas for employee engagement. I'm like, ask your team. You're on, what are you on the internet asking for ideas for employee engagement? You're not engaging their team, you're engaging yours. It's like going to the internet, and I'm not saying this hasn't happened, but it's like going to the internet as a husband and being like, hey, I need ideas for my wife for her birthday. Bro, you better be using an account that isn't your real name. So these 3 questions are designed to do to extract from your team what's important to them and how they view things. And then you pull that together we do in the process, and then ultimately you do as a team, you pull it together as percentages and you say, all right, you've got a team of 25 people, 20 people, you've got 8 people that said the same positives. That's a solid number of people. So that's something that you're doing fairly well. You could just continue to expand on those things. If you've got the same percentage that's preaching something on the negative side, they're also usually going to be talking about some solutions in this question. Usually the negative and this question talk. I call it the negative. The second question, what do you hate about your job, is the negative, and then this one I call the transformative. Those 2 are usually communicating with each other because people who have a problem and have expressed it usually have some reasonable facsimile of a potential solution. That's why they have a problem. If they couldn't see any other way to do it, they wouldn't complain about it because they would know there's no other way to do it. Although occasionally that does happen. Sometimes you've got somebody, sometimes you've got a team that's just like, we understand why we're limited in this particular area, but we just please try to figure out how to do something about it. And those will come up in these types of conversations. But the goal of these questions is to see what they're thinking without guiding it. Does your manager, does your manager conduct regular one-on-one? That is data driven. The organization's getting that data. And the person who's delivering that data isn't being engaged about what's important to them. They're just being engaged about whether or not the organization is a measurement system. This is not a measurement system. Or if it is, it's a measurement system of what they're interested in communicating. So there's our survey. And then you follow the survey. This is the next step in the process by a connective discussion, which is the one-on-one. In the process, the way the process goes, initially it's our team. We do them as a third-party neutral. Eventually, it's your leadership doing them. And that's really, honestly, and we'll see that in the graphs that I have at the end, the more data. I really do smile big every time I mention the data. There's a reason for that, because the next set of data is actually impact data. I love the impact. So these are the three questions. And before I go into this, let's anybody have any questions about the question? Yes, go ahead.
Those three questions,
Yes.
are they answered anonymously?
Yes. Initially, they are. So here's the thing. We give them the questions. Our team will send out a Word document that has the question. They don't have to write them down. They don't have to fill it out. They don't have to do anything. They just have to come to this connective discussion, prepared to discuss their answer. And it is kind of comical because the most gruff people will be like, oh, you know, I'm going to be 5 minutes. I'll be in and out in 5 minutes. And then I've had people who literally said that. And then they were almost an hour. And then they hugged me when they left. So it's really powerful. Putting these basic things together is very powerful. Also, I have found that, so my average connected discussion for my team when we're doing it third party neutral in the beginning of the process was about an hour and 8 minutes in a for-profit. Not surprisingly, it was an hour and 23 minutes when I moved to nonprofit work, which I used to just plan like an hour and then like an hour and 15-minute buffer and then 15 minutes and then the next session. I had people standing outside the door waiting to get in on the nonprofit session. More to say, more tenured employees a lot of times, people who had more to complain about, for lack of a better way of putting it, and they were ready to talk, but that's the goal. So any other questions on the questions? Right, look at it again. Yes, ma'am.
Actually, a question about communication safety.
Okay.
So how do you navigate communication safety versus becoming like an emotional whipping post for your staff?
That is literally, I think it's the next slide. So part of the connective workplace certification path is training around a whole host of things, not the least of which is what you just brought up, which is kind of a combination of communication safety is actually a phrase or a term that I coined. If you Google communication safety, you find safety about communication about safety. Hopefully someday when you Google communication safety, it will actually bring up my stuff. But for now, you get stuff from OSHA and whatnot about actual safety. But the trick is essentially a combination of active listening and it's active listening and the clear intent. That's part of those are the two. So the intention, and I usually remind teams, your leadership has chosen to spend money to pursue every voice. Don't make them wish that they hadn't. They're human. They're not going to do everything perfect. You're human. You're not going to do everything perfect. But when you get in your connective discussions, you know, this was obviously after the first round. The first round, I'm able to sit in front of them and say, you can't hurt my feelings. I didn't make any of these decisions. So you can say whatever you want, however you need to say it, whatever you want to do. There's nothing off the table. Bring it. Your other team members will too. So just bring it. Again, you're not going to hurt my feelings. I didn't build this company. It's not my problem. It's my job to fix it as much as I can. But I'm not going to be doing that in the connective discussion. So our job in the connective discussions is not to, and there's a whole host of other, I just picked a few key points. We're not there to defend. We're not there to empathize, which by the way, I want to hit empathy, and that's why this is here. Empathy, by definition, is the ability to sense other people's emotions coupled with the ability to imagine what someone else might be thinking or feeling. I consider empathy in that context to be largely ideological. How in the world could any one person really have any strong sense of what someone else might be thinking or feeling, even if you've been through the exact same experience by your own definition as what they're saying or doing they are in. You're a fingerprint. They're a fingerprint. Not the same. So I don't recommend trying to figure out, and you're also not to get emotional. And again, this is after, these are parts of training. This is part of what I do in leadership training, in between the time that my team does these sessions and the time that their team would do the sessions. But these are key points for any time that you're in a one-on-one with a team member where your goal is connection. Nothing more, nothing less, just connection. These are key. And then our job is to listen, gather information, show compassion, because compassion is sympathetic pity or concern for the sufferings or misfortunes of others. Sympathy is, in my opinion, trumps the attempted empathy every time. Because you can always sympathize with someone, even if you really have no concept of what they're doing. You can always offer to do whatever you can to help them. You can always, ask them what is there anything that I can do? Is there anything that I can say? Is there any action that I could take that would help you in this situation? You want me to just sit with you? These are powerful things, much more powerful than attempting to figure out what they might be feeling and then echo that back to them, which is dangerous. So, not just HR dangerous, but it's just dangerous. Because the odds are not super great, and even if you are, I don't recommend it. And lastly, remain neutral. So these are connective discussions, but this is I would consider all of these as benchmark philosophy for any time you have a one-on-one conversation with a team member that isn't driven by an agenda. And I mean, honestly, you could use these even in water cooler talk. It doesn't have to be a formal meeting. All of that will signal to them connection, because it is connection. It's agendaless, which is pretty much the definition of connection in this particular context. So if we are going to, pretty sure what that says at the top is, if we're going to address the issues of the challenging labor market and the engagement that isn't really going anywhere, it's going to come from connectivity. And that's becoming more and more clear as data comes in about what people are looking for in the workplace. They're looking for connection. They aren't always using that word. However, and I don't think I mentioned it, but we may run into it on the slide somewhere. The current CEO of Gallup, his name is Jim somebody. Anyway, he actually said in his opening letter in that Gallup 2025 Global Workplace Report that connection was the thing that was being reported by managers specifically as their biggest challenge. So even the word is growing. Recap here: clear intention, open-ended questions, and then connective discussion. So, questions on any of that? Getting really close. Can't believe I've done this well. Any questions at all? All right, I'm going to run you through a little bit more data. This data, that says let's talk impact.
Do you want to try and take the mouse and just pull it down to the bottom? Just curious if that would be.
That's brilliant, Emily.
To go for you, and
Thank you so much. All right.
She's got your best interests at heart.
It literally does.
Yeah. Clear intention, right? Open discussion.
So since you did so good with that, can you give me, can you back me up one slide? Because it doesn't seem to do that.
Left button.
I grabbed that.
On there.
So it's funny because I did a presentation like this for Data Talent for Career Source on Coast about a month ago. And their clicker was so responsive that I actually got feedback from one of my colleagues from Career Source on Coast that I played with it too much. I was going back and forth, this like this, no matter where I put it,
What do you
it
want?
worked.
Next one?
That one right there. Yes, thank you so much.
I work for a tech company. No, actually.
Thank you. I can figure it out, but it would keep you guys here till 2:00. All right, so this is our first slide. This is what, and this data, by the way, is Kathy, some of you may know Kathy Bouchard, the CTO of Career Source Suncoast. She has been their CTO for almost 17 years. She's a 25+ year HR professional. Fantastic person. If you don't know Kathy Bouchard, you should know her. Career Source Suncoast has done the connected workplace process, and one of the main drivers was her attrition. So I'm not going to camp on this. You guys can, digest this information later, but the long and the short of it is we cut from her high there in 2022 to 2024, the connected workplace cut her attrition rate less almost half of the 2023 numbers. And honestly, part of the reason that I got involved with them on the connected workplace is because at the board level, I was looking at survey results that they were getting from surveys they took at their retreats, which were driven by, like we talked about earlier, there were very specific questions, a lot of them. I don't remember how many, but it was like over 60. She would have been here this morning, by the way, to present this, but unfortunately she was in Rhode Island and couldn't be here. So these are some of the graphs. They've got historical data. This is the other beautiful thing about organizations that are used to compliance. I found this with most nonprofits. She's got lots of historical data. So this is the question they ask at their retreat. One question they ask at their retreat. I believe management has my best interests at heart. We did the connected workplace here. And what happened here? This was when they actually reached certification and their managers were doing all of the connected workplace process. In other words, none of that was confidential anymore, or at least not confidential to an outside firm. It was confidential between them and their manager, their supervisor, or whatever, but it wasn't confidential external. This is an environment of fairness and transparency. See another nice spike there. These are questions that, as you can see, historically don't move around a whole lot. That's a significant percentage jump. I see the results of my voice concerns. This one actually caused me to get a little misty-eyed when she presented this data in an exec committee. As a matter of fact, she thought she was just doing like a quick rundown of the data. I was like, I'm gonna have to go off screen for just a minute because that's the whole point. That's literally the point. If the Snickers show up in the snack machine, then leadership did full circle. Leadership did what they said they were going to do. They pursued the voice, they heard the voice, and they did something about it. I have the freedom to express myself, hit an all-time high of 100%. This is an organization of about 60 people, so this is a decent-sized group. And we are a hybrid of federal, state,